welcome back to Open Door. Today we're talking with a good friend of mine, Sean Smith. Sean and I have been friends for a really long time, and I've always seen him as someone who sees things coming before the rest of us do. And to that point, he's been out in front of AI, helping companies find their way to start thoughtful, ethical AI use. And I think if you're a small business out there who's maybe dipped your toes in AI, but you're not really sure really how to implement for your business or where to start, Sean has some really great insights here to share, and I'm really excited for this one. So, Sean, welcome to Open Door. Super glad you're here, man.
It's good to be here. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
100%, 100%. So, Sean, I'd like to get started by you telling us a little bit about how you got started in AI, right? I know you have a little bit of a production background or whatnot, but I'd love for our audience just to understand how you got started in it, and eventually you can help them get started too.
Yeah. I kind of fell into it. I never personally would have thought I would have been a specialist in AI development. But my, background with video production, among other things, kind of led to me taking a different path because I currently live in Spain. I'm an expat. I have a multinational family, and travel was something that I was trying to do less of. So I started doing different types of work in production, so post, and started getting into automations and systems because I'm a systems person. And so systems was one of the things that I focused a lot on, and that was my automation world within my client base. And I got a kind of a word or a insight that AI was really coming on the scene just from my network base because I have some contacts in the space and got early access and got my eyes on some stuff. And then when I started implementing it, it kind of just changed the game completely. So I somehow found myself at the right place at the right time. I started kind of seeing the writing on the wall where things were going and just went all in. And then ever since then, I've been riding this wave. So here I am.
That's awesome, that's awesome. I love how you
Yeah.
spoke about systems and the fact that you have a systems background, and that actually happens to be the name of your company that's servicing others as
Yeah.
well, systems, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, a lot of business owners, even like myself, are all hearing a lot about AI, and I know personally for me, it's easy to watch a lot of this content and feel like, "Oh my gosh, I've missed it. I'm already behind," right? And you came into this space without a tech background, right? And
Yeah.
so as you're approaching this, and what would you tell the person who thinks they're already too far behind? Because there's so many trainings out there and so
Yeah.
many new things launching that it could easily feel like, oh man, I've missed the boat.
Yeah. It's definitely, it can feel like an overwhelming time right now. Even for myself, like I'll work backwards here, even for myself on a daily basis. Like I struggle with the same tension, and then I have to stop and pause and remember kind of like the bigger picture here. And the truth is, like, we are all in front of or on in the middle of uh, a change that is beyond our scope. So no one is late to this game. Everyone, in my opinion, is early in many regards, and no matter where you're
Mm.
at, there's so many bridges that are in place where, for myself, I'm not a coder. Never wanted to be a coder. Um, it's not my language. It's not something that I ever had interest in. But I operate in code every day because I no longer have to be a coder. I have to be an orchestrator. And
Mhm.
what I find is really interesting is based on your area of mastery, because we all have them. I feel like there's a bridge in which you can operate in AI, no matter how technical or untechnical you are. It can meet you where you're at because AI is agnostic. It's going to be, it's in every medium. It will be in every medium, and no matter where you're at in the game, you can start. And so, and I say agnostic because even in my space, in terms of what I do, some for some reason it's just made sense to me because I'm a strategist, I'm an orchestrator. I like to use different pieces and ingredients and everything that I do, and it's somehow there's a language there that works for me. And
Mm.
even without having any expertise in coding, I have an understanding of systems, and I have an architecture and how things need to take place. And so I'm very aware of people that have a certain area of mastery can come into AI and find that it plays very well for how they're wired and that they can paint in the way that they're made. And so you can start, in any way with doing free courses, or there's a lot of different avenues people can take. But I'll put it this way: I have a friend of mine that he has a company. It's all based on curiosity, and he always says we're one question away from a breakthrough. And I
Mm.
feel like it's more about asking the right question versus being overwhelmed by the signal and the masses of what's being told to us every day about AI. And that's a whole other conversation. So
Sean, that
yeah.
that makes sense in terms of, there's so much information out there, how do we approach this, how we set this? And I think you hit the nail on the head from the perspective of what kind of problem are you trying to solve, right? Foundationally. And so when you and I had conversations about this, you brought something up that I think that was so great because I think you do think foundationally about approaching anything. I've just seen that with you over the course of the different careers that you're
Mm,
part of. But as you talk about this distinction between as you're approaching AI, fear and danger. So I'd love for you to
yeah.
elaborate a little bit because it left some things with me where it kind of made me kind of puppy dog ear to a little bit. I loved it. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. And I'll take you on a little story because this is actually recently has become a very big topic that I'm talking a lot about. But for me, some of my production background, as you know, Chris, was in some war-torn areas, front lines of war zones, and I found myself with a special teams unit called the PJ unit in Afghanistan, and this theme of the difference between danger and fear was a conversation that was had all the time. Like, danger is very real, fear is not, and if you let fear inform your decisions, you could actually miss out on some very beautiful and cool things in life. Bottom line. And if you are able to decipher between the two, you can avoid real danger. But if you let fear dictate your decisions, you can miss out on a lot. So,
Hmm.
in the scope of AI, there is a lot of fear around AI, and I think it really stems from the story we've been telling ourselves. Actually, since we were probably before we were born, everything in media and movies and stories was about how AI was going to come and then kill us all. So we have to figure out how to, Skynet, Terminator, all that, all the stuff that we grew up on, which is great and fun and entertaining. But I do think it left a deep mark in our ability to frame AI. And even so recently, looking at the world players within AI. So you have Elon Musk, you have Mark Zuckerberg, you have OpenAI, you have Anthropic, you have companies based out of different countries like China. And in the voice box of the world, on the national stage, the narrative that's being talked about is not always positive. It's pretty heavy, and I think that informs a lot about how we feel. Now, I I am a subscriber to the math that the majority lies in the minority. So change can happen from one person. So I think the math in our history has shown us that one person can change a lot. And if all the masses are saying one thing, but there is a potential of another thing, that other thing in terms of AI for me is hope. And it's really beautiful. And even though there is a heaviness, I think, around the topic, I've just found such beauty and hope and color and creativity, and like the possibilities are endless. And I feel like there's this real beautiful thread that's being woven out. And I really have met a lot of people in this space, whether they're super young too. This is another thing too. The barrier to entry is there's no more barriers. So you can be a 10-year-old and start operating with AI, and because you have a blank canvas, you can really do some amazing things. And so, not to mention a 20-year-old or 30-year-old, 44-year-old, I feel like a kid again. And I feel like in that space and in on a blank canvas, I don't have to subscribe to whatever heaviness or fear-based maybe perspective is, because the things that people are doing in science, in health, in many spaces that we need change, it's astounding. Like I stay up at night thinking about all the possibilities now in a positive sense. So
Got it. At being a business owner, and because I think a lot of business owners, they're going to be skimming content, they're going to be looking at things. Maybe they see
Yeah,
this specific episode, and they're curious, right? They're a little afraid. I think as a business owner, I'm thinking
yeah,
about so many different things, even with my own business. One, my staff being nervous. Oh my gosh, you're going to replace me with AI.
yeah,
Um, Privacy, security, all these elements. From a small business perspective, when you talk
yeah.
about fear and danger, what do you think is noise? And what do you think there are specific things that they should be focused on?
Yeah, it's hard to answer, but I'll give you just my basic take. Like even today, so one of my clients is a one of the biggest real estate firms here in southern Spain. I built out a an AI outbound calling orchestration system with 14 different agents that calls in nearly 30 different markets, and that was just the start.
Hmm.
And then we have an inbound architecture and an internal architecture, and part of my job is now consulting different departments. So there's a financial department, a legal department, a design department, a rentals department, a cleaning department. Every type of department is there. And the bottom line is every department can benefit from AI. And every time you or I experience seeing a person like click, like it's not so scary, it's like the little kid comes out and this one of the staff, her name's Aya. I was getting her kind she's a designer. She's been very afraid about like her designs, getting access and all this stuff and her IP and her tool. And then she literally today, for 6 hours straight, was using a design tool. I got her
Hmm.
set up on it. She just was like, I cannot believe this. This is amazing. She's very Spanish, you know.
Hmm.
She's
Hmm.
like, I had no idea. It's just like, this changes my life. And it's like, yeah, and so that little kid comes out, and I think at the end of the day, there's a reason why we have fear. Yeah, it makes sense. But I think no matter where you're at, you can adopt a tool that can save you some time, or can help you be more efficient, or can maybe partner with in a way that you never expected, and you have the best assistant you never knew you didn't have. Like whatever it might be, it's about providing lift. And to me, that's the basics, and it's just about finding that yes, it makes sense to have some fear, yeah, because it's a weird time. We're in a weird time, let's be honest. But I think if you start to approach it with your comfort level and start engaging and seeing where it might partner within your business, you're going to find that's going to bring lift, and it's going to inspire you and you want to do more, and then you can
Sure.
find out how you can actually outfit it to your best needs and goals.
That makes sense. What are some of the things that you're
Yeah.
hearing from business owners that you just think are flat out wrong about AI, and essentially what you can't do for them?
Yeah, I'll say that there's a lot of buzzwords maybe, and I think it's like any language is so funny. I'm a multinational family, so I mean, even when I speak to some of my own language, you have to be really clear and really, you know, communicate well. And I feel like with AI, there's a lot of words we're using like agents, and the understanding what an agent is and what it can do.
Mm,
um Structure, I adopt a phrase that, agents are not agents, they're just organized file structures. And so I think approaching that, if you have a business and you've developed the ability to make money in what you do, you are organized. There has to be something that you're doing well. And that IP and that work that you've done to create that system has a lot of value. And if you can plug it into AI in a way that best positions your strengths, you're going to find that it really leverages what you've done well and then
mm,
maximizes it. And instead of looking at an agent as your solution, it's more about, before you ever even get to the decision of having an agent or what kind of agent,
sure,
you have to go
sure.
to your business model first. So I think if you have a really successful bit, or not be successful, but if you have a business that you put your love, passion, and heart into, and you've been doing this for a time,
Mm,
man, that has so much value in the AI space. And I think that's the mentality change that I would hope people consider, is that your agent is not going to be the answer,
yeah.
because you're going to have to define, like a person, what that agent does. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's really good, which I think goes back to your structure. conversation, right? I even love how you
Yeah.
say they're not truly agents, they're really just a solid file structure, and that
Yeah.
there's a recipe and ingredients of what's made you successful, and really you're just leveraging AI to help that, right?
Yeah.
For a small business owner who's never built an agent, what does that
Yeah.
look like for them on practical terms? So I'm just thinking of someone comes to you and they say, "Sean, I need you to build me an agent to do X, Y, and Z." How are you approaching that
Yeah.
conversation with them, right?
Yeah.
And essentially, what does that look like in practical terms? Because I think one of the things you're mentioning is you're demystifying the expectations of this agent's going to come and do all these things. And I love how you mentioned file structure and almost like a person. It has to be set up for
Yeah.
success to know what to do tactically, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to know how
Yeah.
you approach that with someone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I feel like the approach that I take with this form of development is similar to video production. So, as you know, before any camera gets turned on, you need to understand your why, right? What's the overall goal here, and mapping all that out, creative direction, a lot of planning. And I think the same discovery is really the necessary step within agentic adoption. Is you really need to understand what it is that we're doing and why first, and what in your organization has pain points. What problem are we trying to solve? I feel it's a similar discussion to automation. It's like, oh, we'll just automate. Well, we have to automate what? Like, what is the system that we're automating from point A to point, like closing that loop? How do we define what it is that we're automating? So there's a lot of discovery and definition before we ever, do any builds. But it's really about how to partner an agentic system to a human, and helping the human be more optimized. So I think a real pain point for all of us is email. I have too many emails, and it has been the biggest pain point for me staying up on my emails. I created a solution for myself where I don't have to check 90% of my emails anymore. And I had to find a system that would work for me. And security was one of the main parameters. And then how do I navigate something to do my emails for me? So it's about trust. So how do you um, facilitate trust? And a lot comes down to clarity in the orchestration, and
Mm.
then a level of trust, and then how we onboard, and then the pain point that we're solving, and then from there it's like superpowers. I feel once you get a foundation, then you can start just adding on and adding on. And I tell people all the time, like, this is the worst it will ever be right now. It's the
Hmm.
worst.
Hmm.
And then on a daily basis are new solutions and new possibilities, but it all has to tie into the foundation of the problem that we're solving, why we're doing it. And this goes into a much larger discussion around like even the ethos of AI and the AI that you're working with, and what is your company ethos. All those things really do play a big factor in how any of your AI infrastructure works.
When you say it's the worst, do you mean when they're building the thing, like, this is the worst it's gonna be from an element of, like, I know it feels chaotic, I know it feels crazy, but it's gonna get better, and we're gonna refine this. Is that what you're speaking to?
Yes and no. So yes,
Okay.
but also no, because the systems are. I found myself in this weird position that I can't explain. Because timing is one of those phenomenons. It just kind of is or it isn't. And so I started a project a year ago where I wasn't able to do 90% of what I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
And there was just certain things I needed in my architecture, and I was trying to figure it out and build it. And then a tool would come along on the day of the week that I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, oh, that's
Hmm.
amazing. But it just keeps happening. And the levels of the LLMs and the levels of the infrastructure, the tools that we're using are just leveling up. And the community is solving these continual issues within architecture. And
Hmm.
it's so one person over here solves something and it just goes over here to someone like me. And it's just a continual thing where the AI itself and capabilities are the worst that they'll ever be too.
Hmm. That makes sense. Thanks for breaking that down.
Yeah.
When you see companies that wanna work with you or they're going down their own AI journey, what are some of the most common mistakes that they are making when they're trying to bring it in too fast or without a clear purpose?
I think companies that um, don't have clarity in terms of what AI is and what it can do, unrealistic expectations, um, need kind of like a reframing. And again, time to have a discovery to go into how it can best partner with what they're doing. I think there's been a lot of things that have come on the scene that have moved really fast, and um, which sometimes is positive, but sometimes it can really leave you exposed. And security, I'm security first with everything that I do, and I think that's one of the risks of adopting some agentic frameworks without a good security protocol can really leave you exposed.
Mm,
So security is for me paramount, and also creating a solid foundation so that as things continue to progress in the AI field, you're able to stay within that progression. So I think sometimes when you go all in on just one LLM, so like if you're just only open AI, you're gonna really miss out on the benefits of Anthropic or Gemini. And so I think it's important to stay agnostic and use the tools that best suit your company, your business, your goals, not do necessarily what the next person's doing just
mm,
because you heard something or see something. It's really understanding that all tools have a place and they're not all
sure,
equal. So there are
sure.
some companies that are pulling ahead in different areas. So if you're very visual marketing forward, there's LLMs that very much support that. If you're a law firm, there are LLMs that very much support that. If you're data driven primarily, so there's an architecture in the design of and working from your strengths, and to have like a scope of kind of how the agentic world partners in that, I think is real
Sure.
important. And then being security first. Yeah.
That's really good. You mentioned security is like one of the most paramount issues. I'd love for you to speak about some of the potential risks that people are not aware of. I think that's an area that you can have a lot of value for people as they're looking to embrace these tools.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's one of the things that I'm personally working on with a few close friends is a security protocol, like auditing security. Because you, like anything else, like we adopt new things, but we don't understand the power of it. So social media is incredible, but it's not innocent. It, as we all know, as anyone that has families and kids, it's like it's not innocent, but it's very powerful and it's incredible. It's the same, I think, with a lot of the AI advancements. You might use a new tool, but you don't understand there might be some security exposure or vulnerabilities, or you just opened yourself up to something you didn't know it. So a lot of people are going forward with some things and they don't know how to audit, what they're doing. So there are tools out there that can check your code. They can check any exposure, can see if your API keys are being exposed, if your structure's sound. And it's incredible. The more I find that I've been security heavy, it's helped me on my outward facing too.
Hmm.
So it's a double-edged sword, where if our security is hardened this way, it makes us better at our job outward too. So um, I try at every new level that I advance in to understand the security exposure and ramifications as well, and just make myself, aware and position myself accordingly. So especially with data and especially with my client base, like it's a must have. Yeah.
Mm, that makes sense. From a personal standpoint, as I know you're using a lot of businesses, because I think a lot of what you're talking about too is, a lot of what you've learned have been you looking at specific things in your own everyday life, such as the email
Yeah.
conversation, right? Of saying, hey, I need to
Yeah.
have a better way to filter all these emails and a secure way, right? So I feel like that's
Yeah.
how you're approaching things, you know,
Yeah.
overall format and structure and then security. How do we better our lives using it, and how we try and how do we start? It sounds like what you're really saying is look and identify the problem and then in a structured order way go about that, right? I know you've talked
Yeah.
about security. That's something that we're thinking about all the time. One of the other things that's popped up lately is we're moving a lot of technology is moving from subscription based to token based, right? And if you don't have a
Yeah.
really good structured format, you can run up tokens and bills really fast, right? So it also becomes
100%.
a cost impact in that company. That's something that we're dealing with as well. So not only just the
Yep.
security element, but also just good business sense, right? For what they're
Tokenomics.
going about. That's right. That's right.
Yep.
As you've built systems for clients, are there things that you're consistently deciding as you're speaking with them that should not be automated, right? Places where you've pulled back and you've been like, actually, no, I think a person needs to own this. Have you encountered that in some of your client work?
Yeah, 100%. Man, there's a lot there that you said that makes me, yeah, it stirs me a bit. Yes, and I'll say this too, going into that question. I think learning how to learn has probably been the biggest advantage for me in the AI space. So I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed in every arena of my life, but when it comes to knowing how to learn, I am. Like, I'll figure it out. And when it comes to some of these normal progressions that you find with AI builds, you can move very, very fast and think, oh, I just don't need, we don't need a person here. And then you can get yourself in a bad position. There's a lot of areas of mastery that we have as people that we need, I think, to maintain and support and nurture. And so, in all the builds that I've done, we still need people. And I find that it's really an art of development in terms of, if you have a business and you work with people, it's an art to develop people. It's an art to understand their strengths, understand their weaknesses, develop them, help and push them to higher standards and goals, and support them and give them what they need. It's really similar with AI, but I find that it mirrors each other. So I have a giant orchestration that I built for, again, one of my the real estate firm here. I'm on an NDA, so I can't tell you who they are, but on the average, we do 10,000 calls a week in
Mm,
30 different markets. And in that, we have positioned people to operate in their area of strength so that AI can take the burden of fatigue of just trying to nurture leads and qualify
mhm,
leads. That's the real estate game. Like, you're just spending
mm,
all this time to get to that top 2% to do the thing that you really know that you can do well, and that's
mm,
close and do the relational thing. So now they don't have to deal with any of that. They don't have to deal with qualifying. They just get to show up at that last 2% and do what they do really well. And not only that, they get to use that other time in a more effective way. It's the same with Aya that I had today. She normally would have taken a week to do that. She did in 6 hours. So
mm,
now her workload, right, is shifted a bit. So
mm.
it's a strength and a weakness, because then you can just kill the golden goose and then just start going too much. And I
Sure.
think that's been a reality too. Like, the more productivity you do with AI, I think there's a dopamine hit and people just want to keep going and keep going and keep going. But I think it's a balance of positioning people to be in their area of mastery, optimized, and to let AI do the things that, or can take over tasks that they
Mm,
don't necessarily need to do, right? But there is a balance there, because as AI increases, then we're continually defining, well, what can they take over and what can they
mm.
not take over? So it's a steady progression. And I've seen it go too fast, to answer your question. I've seen it go where AI can just do this, and then people are scrambling to bring people back to kind of figure out how to do this more efficiently because they were had too high expectations, right?
Yeah, yeah. I resonate that with that too, because at Red Door, we're very people first, right? And
Yeah,
I think the way we're talking about AI as a company, because to your point, we're starting to leverage a lot of different LLMs and they're starting to have their own strengths and weaknesses. And we don't want to be agnostic there either. But there comes
yeah,
this element of it's still an arrow in your quiver. It's still a tool, right?
yeah,
And there still has to be application, there has to be management, there has to be oversight and transparency, and you still need
yeah,
people as a part of that. At the end of the day, it's modeling tasks that people are doing. So we wanted to do it
yeah,
well. So completely identify with that. You know, for small business owners, and I can speak to this, we wear a lot of hats, right? And they're going to be very practical in their approach. And they want to know
yeah.
where the investments are, what is actually paying off. In your experience working with clients, what's the most tangible return that you're seeing that they're getting out of AI right now?
Yeah, time and efficiency. So I think a sense of optimized workflow, that the amount of time that they'd spent before they don't normally have to spend, and then tasks that were tedious are no longer having to be taken, or no longer having to be taken care of by them. There's just an optimization of their time, so they're getting time back, and time translates to money. So been the biggest KPI that we can gauge. I mean, last month, the system that I was a part of had touch in a $4 million revenue stream that was trackable. So it's real in terms of the time metric you can get back, and also it's not even just time. It's how your time is being used.
Mm,
There's a
I like that.
optimized way of using your time. Even for myself, so like you pointed out before, a lot of the things that have become services that I offer were pain points for me first. So I solved my own business's problems, and those became services I could offer for clients. But I found this sense of real empowerment and focus, that the stuff that just eat your time, I call them time sucks. It just
Mm,
eats your time. You're
sure.
able to reposition that time, right? And be more optimized. So, yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Speaking of time, I think, we've
Mm,
touched on a little bit. The pace of change is relentless, and it feels like there's a new tool, a new plugin. Claude is releasing new updates like at least two a week, right? So every day
yeah.
there's a new
Yeah.
tool, a new plugin, something new models, new headlines every single week. How do you personally filter through what's worth paying attention to and what you can ignore?
Yeah. So one of my closest friends says everything is practice. You actually interviewed him, Jerome Leba. Um, and it's true, everything is practice. So I would say even before AI, what you give your attention to is very powerful. And then in the AI space. So I only allow positive signal in my space when it comes to AI as a whole. And then even then, I'm family first. Like my why is very clear. It's my two girls and my wife, and time with my family. And so I turn off. And it's been interesting because it took a minute, because there is a real dopamine hit that I get from creating, because it's for whatever reason AI has felt like a paintbrush that I just understand, and I'm able to spin multiple plates efficiently, almost too efficiently, where it's just like I could just keep going. So when
Mm,
you get in a rhythm and you're creating, and it's not just like you have an idea, you're able to iterate that idea fast. Something that might have took me months can take me hours, maybe even minutes. And so I've created closed loops in my world where if I'm iterating an idea and I send it off into motion through my agentic flow, that I don't touch it until morning. And also it's helped catch things for me too. So I have a setup with my own, one of my agents, where I can send brain dumps on my phone, and all of my things that touch me, inspire me, motivate me go to my motivation agent, and it just is always logged. So now my brain and my heart and everything that I love is held in a space, organized, and it helps me turn off. But in that, I have a rhythm of the things I bring in and the things I stop and the things I just detach from. And I'm trying to practice um, when I'm really on and when I'm really off. So if I really am staying true to like the time I'm being given back, I need to stop. And it's hard sometimes, because there is so many things that come out, and there's so many cool things. But I practice the thing I was saying to you earlier. It's we're not late. It's okay, and it'll be there tomorrow, because there'll be another thing out there tomorrow. So it's just a continual practice.
So what I'm hearing is you built an agent based upon on what your needs and what your business does and how you work to bring you specific things that are
Yeah.
to pay attention to in your specific industry.
Yeah, I have a number. I don't know how far deep down this rabbit hole, but I have an army that does things for me. And so literally I have like one of my favorite systems I have. It's so trivial, but every day at 1 p.m. I get a quote, one of my favorite quotes. And so I have an agent that
Mm,
just It's my motivational. It's the same one. It just catches all my quotes, and it also finds some in the same niche. And every day at 1 p.m., I get that quote. Every day at 8 a.m., I get my morning brief. Every day at 9 p.m., I get my nightly brief. And so that's a massive thing for me. I don't have to keep track of my stuff anymore. But yes, I have agents for all my stuff, man. 100%.
Well, Sean, I know, as we're kind of approaching the close here and looking at a positive note, I think a lot of the different positions I've seen you own over the year, yeah, I think you've lived 10 lifetimes, right? You're in production for a long time, you're a wilderness guide. In a lot of ways, I feel that you're helping guide businesses on how they approach AI, right? And
Yeah.
their journey within that. You talked to me about a soul MD file, and I'd love for you to just unpack that a little bit for our audience of what that means, people get context for that, and even how they can start to think about applying something like this to their business.
Yeah, 100%. This does touch a deep nerve in a positive way for me because I'm such an optimist, and I think it's worth stating. Even in my journey, there was a moment within AI where I was like, "Well, wait a minute, it's getting a little bit too much." Because the more I started working in it, and then it quickly snapped back. And it is true. Like I do find a similar, as you beautifully said it, I do find a thread in my life. I tend to work always in teams and with people and ingredients because I'm also like I love to cook, and it just is. It's the same math in my eyes. And so at the end of the day, there was the inception of Anthropic, and when they were building out their ethos model, they brought on a Scottish philosopher to help with the articulation in the code for their ethical boundaries. And they had this woman brought on, and so she created a soul file. And in the model, the beginning model, it was rooted and then it started building around that soul file and created a soul MD. So markdown files are the standard text files that you have within the architecture that AI built off of. And that soul MD file became Claude. It became Anthropic. Like it's so baked in to the ethos and the very foundation of what Claude is, what Anthropic is. You can see it even at the top table, even in recent decisions that were made at a government level of what they will and will not do. And you can also see that playing out in different LLMs. And the Soul MD has become like an anchor point for me. It wasn't something that I found talked about widely, but the more that I've operated, and this I think will kind of close the loop on some stuff. The more that I've operated with AI, the more I've realized how important it has been how I operate with people. My personal ethics and ethos, my values, the virtues, the tenets of my life, I'm having to define it at a very practical level for all of my AI systems. And it's so important. Like even the way I talk to my own agentic systems, I think matters. Like really does. And I'm having to develop it like I would a person. And especially when you're partnering agentic services with people. So even when I work with clients, like we spend a lot of time like in the discovery talking about your company and why your company. What is it? Who are you? What do you represent? What's your goal? Where are you going?
Mm.
All of these nuances are so important. And so it's been incredible because I feel like AI is putting a bit of wind in people's sails in ways they didn't expect, and empowerment, and then they kind of run with it on their own. Like one of the partners at the firm, I built him his own AI assistant that does a lot for him. And his assistant built a solution that I didn't even think of. I wouldn't have thought of on his own, like he and his agent on his own. And I found out yesterday morning what he had done. And I was like, "How did you do that?" He's like, "I don't know. I just kind of did this. I had this thought because I used to work in tech and blah 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 blah, and I did that, and now I have this solution." And I was like, "That's so." He himself is like a kid with his own system, but it's working within his own ethos, wheelhouse, who he is, and all that. So I think no matter where you're at, in this game. For me, I love seeing people being able to partner with AI in the ways that gives them life, in the way that provides solution for what they're doing, and within that, whether that's business or personally. So, yeah,
Well, Sean, thanks for being here. You know, you're someone I deeply trust to tell us what's coming next and how we approach uncertainty with a healthy amount of fear. For those of you watching, thanks for being here. Do me a favor if you found this conversation helpful. If you're also trying to figure out this whole AI conversation and what that means for you and your organization, your business, please share this with someone in your circle. Make a comment below. I think we're all feeling a little behind on AI than we want to admit, and I think it's so important that we all talk to each other about how AI is helping us and where we're not quite sure where to go next. It's people that help us working together, endeavoring, collaborating. So thank you so much for being
yeah,
here, and we'll see you next time on Open Door.
pleasure. Cheers.